If I need to quickly grab and go and beat it out of my house because there's a fire in my neighborhood or my home is flooding, I need to have quick access to documents that are important to me. So when I say that, I mean identification documents. I mean copies of your license, your passports, deeds to your home, titles to property.
David, what's the one conversation that you try to avoid having?
Oh, your heated debate about why Madonna was robbed of an Oscar in 1997.
No, I'm talking about money.
Oh, okay. I think it's probably the fact that no one wants to talk about emergency and end-of-life planning.
Yep, that's exactly what we're doing today.
Welcome to Living Out So Fabulously, where we turn I'll deal with it later energy into peace of mind for you and the people that you love. Karen Melo Ticas is the founder and director of Planning for Good, a financial planning practice with over 2 decades of experience helping busy professionals, and especially the LGBTQ plus community, turn money stress into clarity and confidence.
A CFP with an infectious passion for smart, personalized wealth and retirement strategies, she's all about planning with heart.
Welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you. Wow, was that an intro? I feel so honored to be here today. Thank you. I sound snazzy. Appreciate that.
Of course, the spotlight is all on you now.
Oh, awesome. No pressure.
Right. So as we mentioned in the outset, we're going to be talking about this conversation that no one wants to have. So why do so many people avoid planning for emergencies or a sudden death, or maybe even when they know it's imminent, they still don't plan for it?
Yeah. I think there's 3 major themes that I come across. The first one is that it's human nature that we get scared of this conversation. It's uncomfortable to talk about dying, emergencies, becoming disabled. It also creates sort of an awkward situation. When do I bring this up? Am I going to scare somebody else? Let's say elderly parents. We need to ask them. Where are your documents? Do you have life insurance? How do I contact your doctor? We might feel, one, where do I bring this up? Do I bring this up at the dinner table over the holidays? It makes a very uncomfortable situation. And so we get nervous. We just don't do anything at all. We sort of stick our head in the sand. I think another theme that I hear is that not everybody knows what to ask. I don't know what I don't know. Where do I start? What's an appropriate way to bring this up? What's most important versus a nice to do? Again, it becomes confusing, so clients just don't do anything. Sort of analysis paralysis, right?
Right.
Which means that nothing's getting done. I've had another situation or multiple times where perhaps a family is trying to work on this, but their relationships aren't being respected. Their attempts to do some planning are not well received. I had one client situation in particular really early on in my career that stuck with me. It made me, in fact, double down on serving our community because of this. But I had a same-sex couple, 2 women, before marriage equality was law of the land, walk into an attorney's office. This is a story they shared with me. I wasn't there. But when they said, we would like to protect our relationship, we're not married legally here in this state, the attorney said, sorry, we're not equipped to work with people like you, and essentially asked them to leave. I was
Wow.
devastated. That's a heart-wrenching situation to hear, someone who's become very close to you to relay that information. So I made a commitment that that's never going to happen, in my firm. So I think these are the reasons. They're not sure if they'll be well received when they go and ask for help.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing that story. I do think it's important to highlight that, but I think you bring up this idea of shame. And shame is something I think maybe even older individuals who are in the situation where the family is trying to talk to them about this may feel that shame too, of they didn't do this beforehand, or maybe they feel like they're being talked down to, or their life is being planned for them when they want to still have control of certain things. And I think that
Yes.
probably does bring in a lot of shame. When you're talking about emergency documents, maybe at a high level, what are you actually talking about?
This is a great one because it sounds like it's a big, complicated beast of an item, and it's really not. I want to take this opportunity to here to say what I'm about to say is strictly for educational purposes. It's really important that everybody understands I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. I'm not a tax professional. I'm not giving any kind of legal or tax advice. It's important because situations are nuanced. And so you want to be working with professionals who know your specific situation. But very generally speaking, when we're saying financial documents or emergency prep documents, I'm talking about my financial arena here. I'm not talking about having cans of water or food in the basement, right? Not that kind of emergency. But the kind of emergency that if I need to quickly grab and go and beat it out of my house because there's a fire in my neighborhood or my home is flooding, I need to have quick access to documents that are important to me. So when I say that, I mean identification documents. I mean copies of your license, your passports, deeds to your home, titles to property, right? I'm talking about things that are hard to replace and identify you or help you get access to bank accounts later if you're not in your home. So that's what I mean about emergency documents. I am also including in there a contact list of important people to connect with. So we're in a cell phone environment now. Most people don't know off the top of their head their doctor's main line. I don't know my spouse's employer off the top of my head, right? These are not things that we can readily call somebody. I would have to go and Google that wherever I am. If I'm not around, though, if my husband and I are both away or traveling, we get delayed, my family members need to know who my employer is and how to contact them. So I think that's a step that gets missed a lot is just contact information. Who are the right people to call? Do I have a trusted neighbor? If someone thinks my home is being burglared, where do you go? Who do you call? You call the police, but if it's just, suspicious car outside, could I tell somebody, yeah, call this neighbor at this number because I think that's a trusted person? That's what I mean by emergency preparation.
Awesome. So, folks, if you're just joining us, this is Living Not So Fabulously, where we mix serious money talk with a dash of flavor. We're speaking with Karen Melo Ticas, CFP, about the important stuff that you need when it comes to emergencies for loved ones when and if you pass away. So, how do other documents like a will or living trust or beneficiaries, healthcare proxies, how do these play into this and how do they work together so that people don't get tripped up?
Mm, that's an important question. I think this is what causes part of the confusion is what document does what, and do you need all of them? So
Mhm.
let me clarify one point here. Emergency documents is not just for in the event of death. That is absolutely important to consider, but an emergency is also I've become disabled at work. I had someone recently lose their vision. Now what? Are you prepared to have your documents in order and know who to call? Do you have insurances in place that you can go and collect on? So not necessarily death and disability. Not necessarily something bad. It could just be that you're traveling and you got delayed abroad somewhere for an extended period of time, right? So it's not all death and disability. Sometimes it's just because you can't access information yourself. Somebody else needs to know. With that in mind, some of the documents that cause confusion, your traditional legal documents, what we refer to as estate planning documents, the ones you're going to go do with your attorney, that's your will, that's your power of attorney, healthcare proxy, sometimes there's a trust. The thing to take away from this is that each of those documents have a different job. So one doesn't take place of another. You can't just have a will and call it a day, which I see this happen a lot. A power of attorney is more to give permission for someone to do financial decisions for you. A healthcare proxy is related to someone providing health information. So allows medical professionals to give someone information about you with permission in advance. But it's just health related on that one, where a power of attorney is just financial. A will is sort of a catch-all thing. If I don't otherwise give instructions, a will comes into play and it's like, okay, nothing else had instructions. It goes here. One thing people don't understand is that wills are a catch-all, but they have to go in front of a judge to probate. Many times that's public information. So if we can avoid using a will, that's the best thing. But we can't, we shouldn't avoid having a will. It's just we don't want it to be our go-to, which a lot of people think I have a will, I'm set. No. Beneficiaries, completely other thing. It's not technically a document. It's technically a designation on other accounts that you might have. So we're most familiar with it, 401ks, IRAs, other investment accounts if you're self-employed, a SEP IRA. Anything like that that's a retirement account almost always has an area to designate a beneficiary. So it's important to do that and have a will, not one or the other. And it's important to understand if you have a beneficiary designation, that takes precedence. That's going to be first. So one mistake I see all the time, I've changed my will, but they didn't change the beneficiaries. Guess what? Beneficiaries take the lead. So if you forgot to remove your ex-spouse from your beneficiaries and you're now remarried, oh well, right? That money's going to go to the wrong person. So remember, you have to do all of it. One important thing to remember too that I think causes some confusion, there are accounts that have a beneficiary equivalent that we can talk a little bit more in detail later if you'd like, but it's just not for retirement accounts.
I was just going to say, hold that thought, Karen. We're going to come right back after a quick break. Welcome back to Living Not So Fabulously. We're back talking with Karen Melo Ticas about end of life and emergency planning. John, I think you had a question.
I do. Correct me if I'm conflating two things, but you said the word documents several times, including when you're traveling abroad. But now, if I'm understanding things correctly, according to our Department of Homeland Security, more Americans should be carrying their documentations with them everywhere they go. Is there like an electronic place to keep this sort of documentation, or am I traveling the world right now with a briefcase of documents in case I get pulled over by somebody?
What a smart question to ask. So my personal opinion here, not a legal opinion, but my personal opinion, I don't travel with my hard copy documents, my originals, because that can be lost, stolen, taken away by someone who, not going to drop names, but someone might grab it out of your hand and say, oh, this is fake, and not give it back to you. So in my household, and I tell my clients, don't travel with your actual documents, travel with copies of your documents. That's always good because you might not have access to a digital vault. That being said, the digital vault is the easiest place, so it should be in both places, right? I know that I offer to my clients a digital vault, but you can use, so long as you're being careful of security issues, Google Drive has vaults. You could pay for other services that has vaults, but yes, definitely have that accessible and also have copies on you. But your originals should be home in a safe, secure space where somebody knows where they are. But I don't travel with my passports because I'm afraid that I will lose them or get them taken away.
At the very beginning, you shared the story of the same-sex couple, two women who basically were struggling to get this kind of information. How does planning change for folks who are in the LGBTQ plus community, maybe married, unmarried, or chosen family?
Yeah. I don't know that the planning itself changes. I think the planning's very similar across the board for everyone. So being LGBTQ itself doesn't change what you're doing. I think it changes the urgency. So, for example, right now we're in an environment where laws are not consistent state to state necessarily. They're definitely not respected state to state. Not everybody follows the law, as we've become well aware. So I think in those cases, it's even more urgent for LGBTQ couples, blended families, people with significant others who are maybe not married and their relationships may not be respected. All the more important for them to have these documents in place. It doesn't guarantee that the person looking at them will for sure respect that, but it definitely increases your chances.
Yeah, you brought up the state-to-state differences, and I'm curious, when it comes to some states, there seem to be itching to have laws overturned, and they have trigger laws in place. And earlier this year, there was a lot of discussion about marriage equality being overturned, and that the Supreme Court seems, or at least some members of the Supreme Court, had an appetite for that.
Late last year.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right.
2026.
2026 now. So in these states, is there something different that folks from the LGBT community should be doing?
Again, I don't believe that it's anything different. I just think it makes it all that more important. To my understanding, all the documents remain the same. It just means that you really should take this seriously. I'm not going to say it's too late. It's never too late, but don't wait. This should not be a to-do item for later in the year. This is a to-do item for right now if you don't have them. And have them updated. This is a big mistake that I see is people have their estate documents or they have their contact list filled out. They have IDs on them, but a lot of this stuff is outdated. Their passport has expired. Their will is 10 years old. Their power of attorney is 10 years old. One very important thing for everyone to understand, but especially families at risk, is powers of attorney. The people receiving them, financial institutions, will sometimes turn you away if the power of attorney is too old. And every institution I've seen, whether it's correct or not or legal or not, they have different timelines of it being acceptable. So for an example, one large bank that I know of doesn't like to accept powers of attorney that is any less than 1 year old. That's most people, right? Where some powers of
Wow.
attorney, any institution will take it as long as it hasn't been rescinded. But some institutions will say, no way, that was signed in 1999. Go get a new one. At that point, you might be using it because somebody's already become disabled. So I think that's the urgency, is make sure you know your state laws. Make sure that you keep these documents updated, especially if you're in a relationship that someone else may not respect that relationship.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So if the Supreme Court overturns Obergefell, and I live in a state where they have a trigger law to immediately define marriage between one man and one woman,
Yeah.
and so our marriage is, I guess, essentially dissolved. I don't need to have any additional documentation that, say, a straight couple would necessarily have, where the default is always, go to the spouse for important decisions.
I mean, there are partnership agreements that you could go that's a little bit extra from, say, a straight couple that they might have. But that's beyond the basics now, right? So you could put that in place. I think one that's a big exception is, for example, adoption agreements. Depending on state laws, if, however, you became a parent, if one is a biological parent and one is not, I am seeing clients formally adopt even when they don't have to, in case this happens. In case laws reverse and they're no longer married, now someone may question that second parent who may not be a biological parent. I've seen clients who, for example, got married in one state and have moved. They're getting remarried in that state legally. They're just filing marriage certificates again in their new states, because that state may not recognize a marriage performed here in Massachusetts, for example. So these are extra things, but they're not the common things that I would say everybody should do. It would depend on your situation.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So that brings up another question for me, kind of maybe twofold. For folks who may live in a state where these laws aren't in place, or as you said, some folks in certain places are not respecting the law. If I travel to one of those locations, should I be checking up or making sure that if I'm going to go, say, for example, from California to Louisiana, and there's a possibility in Louisiana my marriage is not respected in certain situations, should I be taking care of making sure everything's up to date, or doing some extra prep work to take documents with me?
Yep, I would. I would absolutely do exactly that. I would make sure I have a current power of attorney, which each person does individually. So, for example, you each would say that the other has financial decision-making powers, and you can say, I'm giving someone financial power for certain things, but not others. So depending on the attorney you're working with, you don't need to say this person can act as me in any instance, but in these instances, same with healthcare proxies, have those current. And if you know what state you're going to, I might even suggest check with that state if they have healthcare proxy templates for that state. They might prefer, like I know Massachusetts has their own by default. It's available free on the Massachusetts website. Every state has something like that. Maybe if you're going to spend some time in Louisiana, use their documents for something like that that's free. But I would absolutely travel with those documents updated and have a copy in a vault digitally available.
Yeah. I guess you probably would say then the same thing for traveling internationally. If you're leaving the country, you probably
Yep.
want to do the same thing. Okay.
Do
All
the
right.
same thing
So
and include copies of your passport.
yeah, definitely. So if you could give a couple of things that people would need to do today to be better prepared, where would you start? Maybe the first 2 to 3 things you would say, this is what you need to do right now.
Top 3 things I would say, number 1, create a contact list. Make sure there's a contact list very clearly in as much detail as you can of who to call in the event of an emergency or an event that you're traveling. So this would be your employer, your spouse's employer or partner's employer. Names of doctors that are super important, so specifically your primary care physician. If you have kids, pediatricians of the kids. Um, a trusted family member, a trusted neighbor, your CPA, so some professional contacts, your CPA, your financial advisor, your attorney, any other professional that you're in contact with regularly. Those are the most important ones, I think, to have, and have it in a place that's accessible. Part 2 is to update your beneficiaries, right? That's a really easy one. Just go to your 401k, make sure your beneficiaries are correct. Look for things like, do I name a primary beneficiary? Have I also named a contingent, which is secondary? So you can name more than one beneficiary. Is it current? And check if you're naming minors. May not be ideal because minors don't inherit in the same way as an adult. So some people will go out and just name their kids by default. I don't necessarily recommend that, right? So I think beneficiaries. And then I think for a third one would be to start gathering some of those estate planning documents. Start making an organized collection of tax filings, mortgage statements. Where are your investments? Where are your insurance policies? I think those are the things that should come first.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I think that um, still individuals going to probably need a little bit of a push sometimes to
Yeah.
get this going. And I do like the fact that you said do this regularly. It's almost like we maybe need to have an annual reminder on our calendars somewhere that says,
When you replace your batteries, update your
right.
Word documents.
Exactly. So thank you very much for joining us today, Karen. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Heed this warning. The first guy I dated, his father did not update his life insurance beneficiary information from his first wife, who was divorced for over 30 years, to his second wife, meaning that his second wife and the 4 kids they had lived off of Social Security because she never had gotten a job. So please update your beneficiaries regularly.
And also take Karen's advice. Put all of your documents into a digital document vault, as well as a fireproof safe in your own home. Most of us probably have easier access to Google Vault, but do keep in mind that there is a fee for all of these vaults, but definitely make sure you get one. Thanks for tuning in.
And Mom and Dad and Laura, this one is for you. If you like what you see, scan the QR code to follow Yahoo Finance podcasts and more videos for expert insight. And until next time, stay fabulous.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.